Thank you very much. बहुत धन्यवाद. It is my great privilege and honor to be part of this really useful conclave organized by the Economic Times. Personally, it's a great honor for me. I remember as a student being an avid reader of Economic Times, not so much for business, but for preparation for the civil service exam. And I always felt ET was one of the best sources for very organized knowledge, and it continues to be. And I'm sure you too, continue to benefit similarly from Economic Times. Today's conclave on economic development, or the $1 trillion dream, is extremely pertinent. It could not have been better timed. And as I have been invited to speak on the issue as a valedictory address, as the last speaker, I would like to remind you that the $1 trillion dream, or the $5 trillion dream we are chasing, is a very ambitious target, but a realistic one. And in case of Uttar Pradesh, we are fortunate to have what we call the double engine ki sarkar pulling this dream. But the double engine also has a safety setup in the form of a guard compartment at the rear. So I would like to delve more on the guard compartment than on the double engine, which has been discussed over and over again since morning. While we chase the $1 trillion dream, which means a very high GDP, which simply speaking means if there's a village of 100 houses, we target that the domestic produce of those 100 villages will be very high, or equivalent to the $1 trillion dream. This is possible by about 10 homes achieving very high growth, and the remaining 90 remaining where they were. So statistically, we would have achieved that. But that's not what we have to do. We have to really work on, while we achieve the $1 trillion dream, we also have to follow safeguards so that inequality doesn't increase. On the contrary, we have to work on a system in which inequalities decrease while we have concomitant economic development. And for this, we'll have to work very imaginatively, and the private sector, the businesses, cooperatives, government, all of us have to come together. We have to develop deeper stakes for the working class population in the system. There are several known models wherein joint ownership of businesses has been promoted. The cooperative sector itself is extremely important. And I think as I speak, the Sahakarita Saptah, or the Cooperative Week, is still on, and they are observing a number of events in that. We also have to look at the possible negative outcomes of economic growth, one of which is pollution. We have been very careful. We have to be more careful. Sometimes some policymakers suggest that we cannot leapfrog. So for the initial growth phase, there will be growth which includes pollution. But I firmly believe that we can leapfrog this generation. We can straight away go to a mode of production where there is no pollution, or there is very little pollution. There is also an urban versus rural issue. We discussed the urban issue at length, and we also discussed agriculture, which predominantly means the rural issue. There is a very interesting development which I notice in my own constituency, which is Kannauj. In every second village, I notice there's a young boy or a young girl with a work from home job. And they would be making about maybe 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 rupees a month, staying in the village, doing a BPO job or any other outsourced job. And there's one young boy who's just about 24 years old. He has an offshore job from Ireland, and he draws 1.3 CR per annum, sitting in a small town like Kannauj. Now, this is a very big opportunity. I don't want to sound too academic, but as a student of geography, I'm reminded that why did towns or big towns, cities develop? Because when the assembly line mode of manufacturing came in, you needed a lot of labor at one place. And that's how towns built. First, they were pretty bad shanty towns, then they organized themselves, and they became better towns. So as we go more towards IT, as IT enables a few more jobs which can be offshored, which can be work from home, I see a very distinct, though marginal possibility of some amount of deurbanization as well. This could be really good for the rural sector, because if there is purchasing power in the countryside, then I'm sure the rest of the development will also follow. So I want the House to recognize this possibility as I see it from the ground and work towards it. The government, both at the central level, at the state level, has been working very strongly to support the poor. I can list out a very large number of schemes, but at a metaphorical level, on the one hand, we are the expressway state. We have 5 very large, long expressways. Another very long one is coming up called the Ganga Expressway and more. We are also home to 5 international airports. These are very, very important projects. But we have to remember that our most important project that we are delivering is that the poor man's chhopri has to become a proper house. We have to give them electricity, water, sanitation, good education in the village. This, of course, means growth as well, but it also means reduced inequalities. And this has been recognized under the Sustainable Development Goals as SDG 10, which is about reduced inequalities. So what I'm saying obviously is nothing new. It's all there in the statutes, it's all there in the policies and in the global policy as well. So I'm just reminding everyone on this. I'm also recollecting our response during COVID crisis. After the initial crisis, we realized that the market had suddenly shrunk, the economy had to be kick-started. The government adopted 2 approaches. One was to support the businesses, and the other was to fuel the purchasing power of the masses. And both the policies worked very well, and we could kick-start our economy, get it back into shape very swiftly as compared to other countries. So we have to remember, this direct benefit transfer in terms of Kisan Samman Rashi, where the government puts in a little bit of money in every account of every farmer. That has helped quite a bit. And other modes also during COVID, where we were directly or indirectly increasing the purchasing power of the masses, it helped. So these were very direct interventions, but if you're looking at long-term interventions, they would be different. They would be very different, and maybe I guess you must be aware, the business sector, the private sector itself has been working on some very interesting policies. The Tata Group, I think in 2009 or maybe 2007, adopted an affirmative action policy. In India, there is no law which mandates any company to follow that. But they did that on their own with some impetus from the government, I'm sure. Following their success in this, I understand Mahindra also followed it, another very big group. And Bajaj, I think, has already taken it up, or they are in the process of implementing it. So 3 very big groups have affirmative action policies for what they call historically disadvantaged sections, which clearly defined means scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. They have policies for helping them in education, but very directly they have policies where they identify vendors who are ancillary producers for them, and they in turn fuel their industries. They support those industries. A number of PSUs have also adopted affirmative action policies. Again, this is all to ensure that inequalities don't grow. In fact, inequalities should reduce. As we grow, only 10 houses growing is not what we want. We want all 100 houses to grow. Of course, there will be disparities. All 100 houses will not be uniform. But the inequality should be as minimal as possible. And as a student of public policy, as I about to finish my discourse, speech, I will suggest a few policy prescriptions. One, in case of UP, we have to adopt an attitude of perfectionism. Because in India, and particularly in UP, we have not been really great at creating perfect institutions. So we have to work hard, we have to be more imaginative, we have to go further into the depth of things, and create systems, institutions which work perfectly. There are very good examples also of that. But there are less, there are more imperfect examples as well. So let's look at each of our systems, whether it's the health sector, education, other policies. Let's have very robust and perfect policies. And as PM Modi ji always advises us, we should look at problem solving one problem at a time and turn that problem solving into a autopilot solution. I'm using his phrase itself. So he says, put things on autopilot, then move to the next problem. So let's not be on crisis mode every time, not in a problem solving mode each time. Let's solve problems in depth, understand them, have evidence-based policy making, have stakeholder consultations for that, and then I'm sure we will be on the fast track to the $1 trillion dream, which is indeed a very ambitious dream, but very achievable. And as I say this, I also realize that when we say everyone must be part of this dream, makes the dream easier actually. Because if it's just a few people's dream, then it's just a statistical dream. But if it's everyone's dream, if it's everyone's realization, then the state will really benefit from it. The country will benefit from it. And with that, I thank Economic Times once again for organizing this lovely conclave in Lucknow, for making me a part of it, for making all of you a part of it. I hope some of what I said made sense. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.